In this chapter, we are going to be looking at the forearm. The forearm is really one of the most complicated parts of the body. It's rivaled with the scapula, and it's one of these areas that, unlike the upper arm where we have the biceps and such, we really have to simplify things. As a contrast, up here we have, the three little muscles here, and you can usually see their individual forms, and there are only three of them. But in the forearm, there is just so much complexity. There are so many underlying muscles you're never going to see. And the good news is that usually this entire area, the entire forearm, can be simplified into simple volumes. In the vast majority of cases, understanding the forearm, or rather being able to produce a realistic forearm, something that's believable, is more down to understanding the simple shapes and how they combine instead of understanding every single muscle. Sometimes it's even an advantage to not really get every single muscle into it, because it will look very unnatural. If you look at like your own arm now, for instance, your own forearm, unless you are insanely ripped and you come straight from the gym with no body fat, most likely you can't even see the individual muscles. If you, for instance, were to go and flex your bicep now in the mirror and you try to see what's going on there, you can most likely identify the bicep. You might be able to identify the tricep if you're flexing that. But the forearm, unless you're really, really flexing that, you most likely will not really be able to see the individual muscles. The complexity of the forearm also rises because, like we mentioned in the skeleton chapter, the arm rotates. It rotates around like so. And this just makes it much harder to understand what's going on. You might be able to understand the main volumes from one place or from one pose, but the moment you're rotating around, it just becomes a lot harder. So the complexity we have comes from, first off, the arm will go from here to here. So you're actually like flexing the arm itself, bringing the hand higher up, but also because you're rotating it. These two factors, the rotations of the hand and the arm up here, just makes the forearm much more complicated than most other parts. So in this chapter, we will look at how we can simplify this into something that's manageable. The goal of learning anatomy is so that you can actually use this without having to read up on this every single time, without having to consult it. It is like you're learning a language. You now want to memorize a lot of words and grammar so that you can say what you want to say. In this case, we're learning the muscles so that we can sculpt what we want to sculpt. So the way we are going to be doing this is we are first just going to do a quick recap of the skeleton and the important parts of the skeleton. The important parts of the skeleton here is going to be that we have to be aware of the bones. First, we have the humerus up here, and humerus will have these two little notches. As a reminder, these are called epicondyles. Epicondyles just means pointy bit. So the pointy bit we have one going outwards, called the lateral epicondyle, and one going inwards here, called the medial epicondyle. And that's really the only thing you have to know about this area. Two pointy bits, one going outwards, one going inwards. And the bone basically goes like so in a more stylized way. Pointy bit, and this is where the ulna attaches. And the ulna is one of the two bones we have in the forearm. So we have two bones. Let me just zoom in on this. We have two bones here. One is the ulna, and that is the one that goes by the pinky all the way up to the elbow. And this point here is actually the elbow itself, called the olecranon, if you want to be fancy. And then we have the second bone, which is the radius. And the way, again, we remember the radius is that the thumb is absolutely massive. So we have a very large radius on the thumb. And if you have these two bones combined with this bone, the forearm becomes much, much easier to understand. So the way we can simplify this is into three parts. If you look at this, it's ridiculous, right? There's so much complexity here. So the way we simplify this is into three parts. The first part is going to be into the ridge muscles. The ridge muscles are these two muscles right here that are essentially always going to form a common mass. And they go from up here into the humerus and down into the into the arm, like so, into the forearm, like so. And this is just one nice shape that rotates around. This is important. If you look at this from another angle, this is just something that's going to rotate around the arm. And this is something you're going to see basically no matter how ripped you are. So the ridge muscles, really, really, really important. And then we are coming to the reason why it's so darn important to memorize these 2 points. Because once we have the ridge muscles, we have 2 more shapes that will come out of these points. These are called the epicondyles, and these epicondyles are really, really important. So from the more of the front view here, this is where we can essentially just draw a point here on this point of it, on the epicondyle, and then just draw this down like so. And then this is going to basically just go like so. And then it's going to continue out here with the tendons. So this is essentially just like an American football or like an elongated balloon. That's just going to go here. It's a bit more like, it's a bit more top heavy than what I drew it now. So it's a bit more like this. And once you have this shape going from the lateral epicondyle here, it just gives you a shape you can actually work with. What's important with this as well is that we have the, if you were to go to the skeleton here, you have the shape here. This is called the ulnar furrow. So a furrow just means something going into it like so. And this bone here is also really important because while it also has the elbow, it also has this line here. And the shape we just drew onto it now, this essentially goes across this. So if you notice this here, and we have the bone right here, we have the ulnar furrow. Then if you were to draw this shape out again from another angle, you can see that this basically just goes into this. It doesn't cross this shape. It just goes into it like so. And then we are just getting this nice volume over like so. So this whole thing here is just one elongated American football, or as I guess you would say in the Americas, a football. And it's just one big shape. It's just really important to keep in mind that right here, you do have the ulnar furrow. No muscles are really going to go across this line. So if you have this like dividing line like so, you have the shape that we have here. We have the this shape, and it just touches this, and it doesn't really go over it. If it goes over it, that would be because maybe one muscle is larger or something, but there is no like muscle inserting from one area and going over to the other one and such. So that is the second shape we have to understand. And then for the third one, this is from the inner side of the body. And this is where, again, if we draw on the inner part, on the medial epicondyle, remember the 3 pointer bits, this we have one on the out here, then we have the elbow right here, and then we have the third pointer bit right here. And this is also going to just form an American football. Basically, it's going to form an American football, and this just goes down into the hand. So this is just going to form one big mass. This shape here is also kind of how we are going to treat it for real as well, not just a simplification, because this here usually actually forms this nice volume. The forearm is something that, on the other side of this, like this side over here, is something you actually have to understand a bit more, which we'll get to in the next chapter. But this one here is actually kind of like this. It's a bunch of very complicated muscles. Like you can see, there's a lot of different things. But when it comes to actually how it works on a human body, it's usually like this. So these can essentially just be simplified into flexors and extensors. So the flexors are going to be the muscles that are going to be flexing the hand. And these are all the muscles we just drew in now, like the American football here on the inside. And these are all flexors. And this is something you're going to be able to see in the anatomical names as well, which we'll get to in the next chapter. And then on the other side, we have all of these guys here. They're really like extensors, including like almost, there are 2 muscles in the ridge muscles, but basically all these are extensors. So only one of these, the ridge muscles here, is an extensor. But these ones here are going to extend the hand. So this means that you're doing the opposite of flexing it. You're bringing it out again in the same way that the bicep is flexing the arm, the tricep is extending the arm. It's making it straighter again. So this way of simplifying the forearm has helped me tremendously. It's really simplified the whole thing down to me. And the good news about this is that this is actually kind of how it works in the real world as well. You can, in a lot of cases, actually simplify it down into these 3 shapes. And what you can do as well, if you want this to be more realistic, we have the lateral epicondyle here, just to point a bit. And then we have this shape going down like so, this balloon. This one here, if you want this to be more realistic, if you want more detail on this, you can just separate into 3. Just draw like 2 lines into it. So now we have one shape that's more, just pick a different color. We have one shape that's more like this. And then we have another shape that's more like this. And then we have another shape that will just remain pink. So you can really simplify this into just 3 parts as well. So some parts of this course, we are going to actually talk about the specific anatomy, and the specific anatomy becomes important, like bicep, brachialis, tricep, and such. But for the forearm, you just realistically can't memorize all these muscles. Then after we have this shape, then we have the ridge muscles, which are the 2 muscles, just forming one shape, like so. And then on the inside, we have the flexors forming one shape, like so, just turning into one long American football. And that's it for the forearm in a simple way. If you want more details on this, you can definitely check out the next video as well, where we go more in depth into this. But frankly, in nearly all cases, what we just covered now is enough to cover you for a lot of the different cases you need. As a main rule, this is what you want to take away from the forearm chapter. But we'll definitely see you in the next chapter as well, where we do go more in depth into this.